Today's podcast is brought to you by Dead on Display Skull Mounting System. You guys have to try this. I have a lot of different systems to hang my Euro mounts on the wall, and if you need one this spring for your mount, this is the one that you want. Your mount isn't going to come off the wall when your wife is dusting. Trust me, I've had quite a few disasters that most didn't end in tragedy, but could have. Check out the system. They work for anything small to as large as an elk. I have an elk on my wall with it. Check them out. deadondisplay.com. Also brought to you by Jason Miller Custom Turkey Calls. This guy's a local. He's a friend of mine. He's got an episode coming up in the next 2 weeks. His mouth calls sound awesome. I have quite a few of them laying right in front of me, and I am going to drive my family crazy practicing. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. You're listening to the InCamp podcast, where we talk all hunting, all fishing, and all the hard-earned lessons that keep us coming back season after season. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Today on the show, it is a whitetail-ish episode, and there are tons of really great stories in this one. I think most of my listeners are probably whitetail nuts, if I'm going to say so. I can't let all the other stuff go, so it's still going to be talked about. But if you're a whitetail person, you're going to love this one. It is an East Coast special with Nick Campagna of Woodman Arms. Enjoy this show. I think you're going to love this episode. This is InCamp Podcast. Nick, tell me about your background in hunting. I know that you are a registered guide for the East Coast in Maine and Vermont. What got you started in that? But first, where did you get your start in hunting and fishing?
I mean, so, probably one of the first things that I did was, my old man used to take me ice fishing, and I was like 2 or 3, and he would put me in the sled, and he would drag me out there, like I was part of his stuff, you know what I mean? And, and I would just sit in the sled. I mean, I wasn't even big enough to get out of the sled and do anything, so obviously there's a lot there that I don't remember, but there's some funny pictures and stuff. But, he just toted me around forever. And, he wasn't into it as much as I have been at the same age. He was kind of self-taught, and then him and his friends kind of, learned and bounced things off of each other. And then, I kind of had an unfair advantage, I guess, because when I was little, I was with them. So they already had all this knowledge. We used to do the Lake Champlain International Derby here. It's Father's Day weekend every year. Okay. I can remember them carrying me, picking me up out of bed, bringing me out of the camp. One of the guys had a camp up there, and carrying me down the dock and putting me on the pontoon boat. And I would just be in a sleeping bag, chilling, and they would drive out and start fishing smallmouth bass or whatever. And when I woke up, I'd hook a minnow on and cast out. It was a ton of fun. They dragged me around trout fishing, and I went, the first time I ever went hunting on my own with a gun, I was, I think 7 or 9. I went turkey hunting, and we snuck up on a whole bunch of turkeys. And I was so young that my dad told me to shoot the one that had a beard. And I was looking for a beard hanging off of a turkey's beak. You know what I mean? I just didn't even know, and we still laugh about that now, but it just escalated. Eventually I found a shed, hiking around in the mountains behind the old man. I couldn't go on my own. I was too young to go on my own and to try tracking on my own and all that stuff. So I'd just be following him around, and we'd see, groups of these big bull moose, and, find moose antler every once in a while, or a deer shed, or just whatever, see all kinds of cool stuff. And it snowballed. It snowballed wicked. And, I hear guys talking about the off season and all that. And my life is crazy. There's not really an off season. I'm already thinking about turkey hunting right now. And there's still 2 weeks left of good pike fishing, which rolls right into shed hunting. I know guys are already shed hunting in a lot of places where there's no snow, but we got a lot of snow. Yeah. And it's you don't get a break. You just, summer is the biggest break that I get, but try to spend as much time with the kiddos, getting them out there in the summer, even though maybe the fishing's not as good and we don't have a fancy boat, but just trying to do the same sort of stuff that I did when I was a kid. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't really have the skin for the beach anyway, you know?
yeah, no, I'm like windburned from fishing on the ice lately. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've been getting after it, man. I'm kind of jealous. We had about a month, maybe 5 weeks of good ice here. It was like 10 inches last week, but we had 2 or 3 days in the 50s. So now the edges are all like, gotta like wade out a little bit to get on top of it, you know?
Oh, you just got to go to Home Depot and get a 2x12 and just lay it on there. That's what we do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's not a bad idea. It's definitely safe ice out in the middle, but um what's so what's something that you would tell somebody who is maybe just getting into hunting and they're your age now? How do you think they can find a way to just really get hooked or have a good time out there?
You just got to find like that one. I don't want to. I don't want to say the gateway drug, but like you got to find that one thing that excites you the most about it.
Uh-huh.
I find I find a lot of people are easily persuaded when they maybe go turkey hunting for the first time
Yeah.
because, usually the weather's nicer and you can hear a turkey a lot of times when they're coming in. That time of the year it's just fun to be out in the morning, and then most places you can only hunt till noon, so it's like, all right, we go get some lunch after, and like that was fun. It can be an interactive thing, and you can go with 3 or 4 people if you really want to. A lot of guys like archery, right? Like they just like shooting a bow.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of becomes like their gateway drug into hunting and fishing. Like they shoot a bow and then they're like, I'm going to bow hunt. And then, well, it's not bow season. Like maybe I should get a gun too.
Yeah.
Bird hunting, bird hunting's social. Not so much, I don't think, where you are, but like, northern New Hampshire and Maine. A lot of guys will get together and go just have, a boys' weekend and just shoot grouse and
Yeah.
hang
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, we have stocky pheasants, so occasionally like, a lot of people really get into that. But that's a good point is like turkey hunting is a really good gateway because if you can find them and you get them vocal, that is something to get somebody new pumped up. But I'm always kind of looking for something because I've got a lot of friends who are like, oh, I'm kind of interested, but I'm not really sure. And, that's something that I want to do is find something fun for them to really, dig their teeth into. Cause I grew up like you, man. Like I was ice fishing and shooting squirrels and stuff with my dad. They have same pictures, man. We ice fished this little lake, and they've got pictures of me sleeping on this rock. That I always go find this rock, and I'd sleep on this rock when I was a kid. So it's the same kind of thing. Is it's not that easy for somebody our age to kind of kick it off and get into this kind of thing. Like there's a lot of rules to learn, and there's a lot of animals to learn about and where can I go and all that kind of stuff. But as a guide, do you take new people pretty often or not as much?
Um, I mostly guide moose.
Uh-huh.
So I've had guys that hunted their whole life and had never killed a deer.
Yeah.
They just didn't have it, right? And then somehow they draw a moose tag, and I take them and their scope is flopping around on their gun and they can't hit the broadside of a barn. Like I took some guys that there was the weaver base on the receiver of the rifle was loose,
Uh-huh.
and one of the scope rings, the top of it was missing. So there was one ring holding the scope onto the base, and then the base was loose. And he was telling me before the hunt how he was like an awful shot. And he was like, I just can't, I'm just not a good shooter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, well, everybody can kind of learn, and then I found out after this the scope's flopping around on the gun, and I'm like, well, that's your problem. You know what I mean? And so I feel like, without making myself sound bad here, like I've always sort of taken it for granted. The time that I spent with my dad and his friends, and like I never
Yeah.
really understood, like people just don't know. Like a lot of people don't know. And that's why the last few years I try to help out as much as I can, like especially with something like turkey hunting, or
Uh-huh.
guys will message me about pike fishing, and like I'm not worried that they're going to go catch my pike or shoot my turkey. Like a turkey is a turkey to me. Like I don't. It's fun when you get one with a huge beard or big long spurs or something. But a turkey is a turkey. They're really
Yeah.
easy to kill. It's which is some people are going to get upset when I say that, but like it's just not that hard. And that's why it's fun to bring new people to do it
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's interactive. The turkeys are interactive. You can call to them and they answer you, and you call and they answer. And the first time a turkey gobbles at 20 yards in front of a new hunter, that'll get them hooked.
Yeah.
So that's I try to just give people tips. Like I probably give more people information and advice than I do guide, because
Mhm.
I pretty much just guide moose. I started guiding turkey a little bit last year, but it's kind of unreliable dealing with the weather and stuff like that and people's work
Mhm.
schedules. And
Mhm.
it's just, unless you do it full time, it's tough, and I
Yeah.
obviously do other stuff for work. So,
What got your start in guiding? When did you start and how did you start?
so when I was growing up, we hated the moose, right? My dad and all of his buddies, that they're all big deer trackers. They're all Vermonters,
Mhm.
deer hunters, like hunting the mountains, and they all hated the moose. It was like, oh, there used to be big bucks up on that mountain, but now it's just moose. And so I was like, yeah, the moose suck. And then as I got older, I started to be like, man, they're pretty cool. And I tried a couple times locally to go and look for antlers in the mountains, and it was tough. By the time I started doing it, the moose around me, like where the long trail is and stuff up in the big mountains, those moose had kind of petered off, and you could go find an old antler, but finding anything fresh was tough. And we'd found a few over the years deer hunting, but it really piqued my interest. And then one spring, I was just like, I'm going to drive up north. Like, I'm going to drive way up north where all the moose are, where it's all logging country. And, my old man was like, yeah, I'll go with you. And I think we found like 8 the first day. We're like, this is
Wow.
cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so that year I was like, we should apply for moose tags. Like we had never even applied. So I applied for me and my dad in the rifle and in the archery.
Mhm.
And that fall he drew an archery moose tag the first year. Like he didn't even apply. I applied for him. And he's like, crap. He's like, I've never killed anything with a bow. He's like, I'm supposed to get a moose with a bow. And I'm like, yeah, no big deal. We'll do it. So I bought all the moose hunting DVDs and stuff I could find, and, watched all these different ways to call moose in. And like an idiot, I went out scouting the week before the hunt, and I was just cow calling, and I started raking brush, and an absolute giant bull came right into me. I had my dog. I
Oh.
had my dog who's since passed away, but I had him with me, and he was tiny. I was carrying him around my backpack. He was a chocolate lab.
Uh-huh.
And I had him, and I had set him on the ground, and I was like eating a Snickers or something. And it was super windy, and I had just done all this calling and stuff. And I heard this like branches breaking or whatever. And I thought it was because it was windy. And I looked up, and he was on the ground just like staring this direction. And I just see this bull come in, and he comes into like 20 yards, just stops, grunts a couple times, and walks away. And I'm like, I would never do that now. Like, I don't call before the season now if I'm going to hunt, because, you can make them call shy. So, needless to say, we went back in there opening day. Dad shot a 58.5-inch bull with his bow at like
Wow.
18 yards or something. Got it on video. It was, at the time, it was number 2 in the state, Pope and Young.
Mm.
Um, and I think now it's like number 4 or something, but it doesn't really matter. But, and then ever since then, people were just like, hey, will you take me? Like, will you take me? It was like, I think the next year my uncle had a tag. We saw like 3 big bulls. He didn't get one, but we saw like 3.
Mhm.
We probably should have had one, but it just didn't happen. Every year it just kind of like escalated. And I did Vermont just for a while. And then some guys I knew in Maine, they were like, hey, you should get your Maine guide license, because like you seem to know what you're doing. And the shed hunting thing also at the same time kind of exploded. So that's the reason that I had gotten that dog.
Mhm.
And I was going to Maine, and I was picking up tons of antlers. Like when I was doing it up there in the beginning, there was like hardly anybody had a dog, and there was antlers everywhere. I mean, I don't even know how many days I found 20 or more antlers in a day.
Wow.
It was just insane. So like I'd go for a week and I'd find 100 antlers, you know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
150 antlers or
Mhm.
and so I learned a lot about moose fast. I got a crash course and and then, I still every year I get a little better at calling and all that. You can never really perfect it, I don't think. As soon
Yeah.
as you think you got them figured out, they do something else. So,
Yeah. So is the shed hunting there like that now? Is it pretty pressured because it's such a popular thing to do now?
yeah, so now like, I knew two guys that had dogs when I got a dog
Okay.
and they they were good. They both had real good dogs.
Mhm.
And I got a dog and one of them kind of gave me the rundown on what I should do. And my dog had sort of a different personality, so I didn't train him exactly the way that he suggested, but
Mhm.
for the most part, I kind of stuck to that plan and just adjusted it as I went. But those guys, their dogs got old and passed away, and then mine was like just in his prime, and like we would be up there. I always had a couple buddies with me, and they didn't have dogs, and they wouldn't find hardly anything. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and we would just clean up. I mean, when I say they wouldn't find anything, they'd find like 30 antlers a piece in a week,
Mhm.
and I was finding like 100 or more. And and they would always be like, "Man, that dog is insane," And we had a lot of fun for a lot of years, and then all of a sudden, everybody showed up, and there
Yeah.
would be people camping everywhere, and guys with dogs. And what happened is like when I first started looking, they were like $8 or $10 a pound for brown
Oh,
antler.
okay. Mhm.
Now they're like $20 a pound.
Okay.
So there's money to be made, and just like anything, as soon as you introduce some money into it, it gets ruined. So I don't do as much as I used to do. I don't go where I used to go, and I just try to I make it more about hanging out with buddies now. Honestly, one of my buddies comes up and we'll throw a shotgun in the truck in May and we'll look for birds in the logging country, We'll try to put a sneak on a gobbler or whatever. We bring the cooler with ice in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll dump a longbeard and throw him in the cooler and then go for a hike and we kind of
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man.
yeah, we basically have more fun now than anything, and we find less antlers, but we shoot turkeys sometimes, and you know, we've graduated to like it's not really about the antlers, and
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be fine with one or two. Those are pretty cool things, man. And such beautiful country. The difference, so is Maine has a lot of public land, but it has a lot of logging country too, and you can hunt a lot of that as well, correct?
yeah, pretty much all the timberland you can pretty much hunt. Like if you look at the moose map for Maine, zones 1, 2, 4, 5, part of zone 8. It's all I think zone 9. It's like all in what they call North Maine Woods,
Yeah.
which is an association, right? And you got to go through a gate and you pay the association, your daily fee or your camping fee or whatever.
Okay.
Um, and it's nice because it's public sort of, right? Like
Yeah.
anybody can just roll up to the gate and go out there. There's
Yeah,
no,
that's
you
cool.
can't bring a four wheeler out there. You can't even bring a bicycle out there.
Nice. That's
It's
cool.
like, yeah,
It's a shame they introduced the money thing. In PA, you can't, if you find a shed, you technically can't sell it. You can't really do any of that kind of stuff that you find on public. I'm sure people still do it, but it's not technically legal. Um which I kind of think isn't really a bad thing because then it has to be for fun. You know what I
yeah, I
mean?
agree.
You know?
If you couldn't sell them in Maine, there'd be a lot less people looking for them.
Yeah, I'm sure. What's something that you like most about guiding?
Um, I would say just meeting new people.
Yeah.
You meet all kinds of people. Some are pretty normal, I would say, if there is such a thing. And then you meet some real characters too. Like, um, I've got people that I stay in contact with all the time now that I've guided, and then
Hmm.
I've got other people that should probably never touch a firearm. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
so it's been a lot of fun, and I'll probably have to write a book someday on all the crazy stuff that's happened.
Yeah. You got a built-in editor.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, it's just, it's. enough crazy stuff happens on your own,
Yeah.
turkey hunts and tracking deer and all that. Like, but then you add in bringing new people, and yeah, it makes for some funny stuff. It's more funny usually after it's over, but
Everybody wants to go to the Midwest to hunt a deer or mule deer, antelope, whatever it is. A lot of people kind of poo-poo the Northeast because there's a lot of pressure here. Of course, Maine has a pretty good reputation because there's good grouse hunting and whatever. But they do get a reputation for the low density deer and the tracking. But what do you think the biggest misconception about the Northeast is?
ooh, I don't know. I feel like everybody thinks that guys in the Northeast are just driving around in a truck looking for a deer track. And I'm not
I,
saying that they're not. That is certainly a method, and it's a good method at times. It's not the only way, though.
uh,
And I think a lot of people think that there's bad genetics and low deer densities all over the Northeast, which is not really true.
yeah.
Central and northern Vermont, the genetics are awful. Southern Vermont, they shoot some nice bucks now.
Uh-huh.
Far northern New Hampshire can be hit or miss on genetics, but central and southern New Hampshire, same thing. Like, there's some wicked bucks, and you're not driving logging roads looking for a track, in the White Mountains.
Right.
And you can do plenty of tracking in the White Mountains, and there's big bucks there. And even in Maine, like Western Maine, there's a lot of mountains. The logging roads aren't as close together. There's more gated roads or ditched roads, rocked off roads, whatever, stuff you have to walk. Whereas if you head up to like Allagash, you could drive all day, and there's a road basically every mile. It's like every mile by mile is checkerboarded off, and
Yeah.
you can do a lot of driving, and a deer can't really. I don't want to say they can't get away, but they're gonna have to cross a road eventually up there. So
Sure.
it's a little different ball game. But
So is tracking your preferred method, or do you do some sitting as well in that big wood setting?
I don't really do any sitting unless I'm gonna bow hunt, and I haven't bow hunted in a long time now because I'm always out calling bulls, or sometimes I'll go call bulls for fun just to get video,
Yeah.
or I'm guiding moose, so it kind of to keep up with a bow and all that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
Yeah.
other than like I do go archery elk hunting every once in a while, and have been successful at that, but um, I don't get to bow hunt, so I don't get to sit much. So I pretty much just wait till it snows, and I go track. Megan, of course, and like last year she was like wanting to shoot a buck with her bow, and so I had to, she had a place on Onyx that she had looked and had a stand previously, and then
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I don't really like this. We walked in there, and I was like, I'm just not feeling it. And I was like, have you ever been over here? We were looking at Onyx, and I'm like, have you ever been over here? And she's like, well, no, but like there's private property close to that. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, but like it's public and it's surrounded by private, and that private ground all looks better than all this other public.
Uh-huh.
And we walked in there, we found a trail immediately. We went back with the stand, hung her a stand, put a camera in there. She sat there opening day and shot that buck. So
Yeah.
um I still get to like use some of the skills that I would be using if I was bow hunting, and it's fun. And something like that is it's like the same way I feel about turkey hunting too, is it's like I didn't do it. I didn't get the animal, but like I had some kind of a part in it, so it's just as good. Like watching somebody blast a turkey is just as much fun as me shooting one.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
so hopefully I'll get the chance to bow hunt some more and sit, but for now I'll just wait till snow hits the ground and go hit the hills.
Well, it's everybody's piece. I mean, moose hunting is something that you love, and obviously you're not going to be able to do it every year for yourself in Maine or Vermont. Just because it's a draw system. Is there moose hunting in New Hampshire as well?
Yeah, they give out like 40 tags or something.
Pretty low.
Yeah.
But but that's how you get your fun. So why not do it? You know what I mean? That's something that I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are missing with hunting is like, I got to go to this state and I got to go to that state with a tag in my pocket. Like, if you know something about that state, or you've got a buddy that wants to come in to your state and hunt with you, like, it might be a good idea to just like in PA, if you fill a tag, but you got a buddy from out of state that wants to come hunt with you and check out the state, like, take them. Like, you get to have just as much fun taking somebody and watching them do it, you know?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I don't know, man. The moose thing is cool, especially because you're calling such a big animal. And I would assume the success rate is pretty good for bulls in those states.
Um, it's low in Vermont.
Okay.
It used to be a lot higher. It's getting tougher. You know, I th- I personally believe they prematurely raised the tags.
Okay.
Um, so I think we're shooting too many again here,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has me conflicted because I'm helping them do that basically. But as long as there's a hunt, I'm gonna hunt, and I can't really hurt the population my own, just on my own. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, we had a tag last year. My buddy had a tag, so I didn't get a chance to guide during the rifle, and we shot a real nice bull. But like we hunted for 4 days, and that was we hadn't seen a moose yet. Like
Yeah.
that was the first moose we saw. There was 3 bulls with a cow, but we hadn't seen anything yet. So, and I've been in that country a lot, for a long time now, and to go through areas that I know are good every year and not see any moose was tough to take. You know what I mean? It was kind of a bummer, but I told him, I was like, we just keep going. The weather wasn't cooperating and stuff, but you can't let the excuses get to you. We just kept trucking, and next thing you know, there's a 56.5-inch bull laying on the ground, and you know,
That's awesome. So what do you think, shifting into whitetail a little bit, what do you think makes those those real northern deer different than other big woods deer? Because most of the East is big timber tracks, but there is definitely something that's different about those, for lack of a better word, New England deer, those Maine, those Vermont, those New Hampshire bucks.
well, I think like one thing that's overlooked a lot that is a factor for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the places where you have snow more often than not usually have bigger deer for one, right? Like the farther north you get, the bigger everything gets, right? So genetics wise, they got big bodies and they don't tend to have bigger antlers the farther north you get.
Uh-huh.
Um, but the one thing that I always notice that I feel like a lot of people kind of leave out of the equation, any place where you get snow often, those deer get tracked. So they get used to having people behind them.
Mm.
Like everybody that tracks goes north to track.
Uh-huh.
And anytime I see snow, southern Maine, southern New Hampshire, Massachusetts, southern Vermont, southern Adirondacks, Pennsylvania, I don't want to say that it's easier and make people feel bad,
Uh-huh.
but a buck that never gets tracked, like imagine if you went to Ohio. How many people are tracking in Ohio, right? You find a
Yeah.
big piece of public in Ohio. That buck has probably never been tracked in his life.
Uh-huh.
So the chances of him standing there and looking back at you the first time you jump him, real good,
Yeah.
real good.
Right.
If you get, say you go to Jackman, Maine, it's good. It's good hunting. There's good mountains there. It's everything a buck needs to grow is there, but everything he needs to get shot by somebody tracking him is there too.
Uh-huh.
There's every road up there's got guys on it looking for a buck track, and they get followed. I mean, if they cross a road, they're going to get followed.
Yeah.
So they get educated real fast.
Yeah.
It doesn't just pertain to tracking. I mean, if you went and hunted, some wildlife sanctuary where deer never get hunted, be the same thing. A buck would probably look at you in your tree stand and not really care,
Yeah.
or care a lot less. So I feel like that's a big thing that like if I see guys like, oh, how hard is it to shoot a deer? You'll see on the internet and stuff like, oh, I can't believe you shot that deer laying in his bed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, come try it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he certainly had a chance. Trust me.
let's focus on a memorable buck that you had to make a lot of right decisions to get on his track and to stick with him and then make a shot happen.
What we can do,
Yeah.
the first one, the smaller one, smaller racked one, you probably saw he was all scarred up and stuff. That one, they were both good stories, but that one ended up dying in a river. He had swam the river the day before to get away from me. And then he came back and I caught him. I was walking the edge of the river looking for him the next day, and I shot at him running, and he ended up jumping in the river and making it most of the way across. But so that one, I had to make a lot of good decisions on that. But I would say the one after that in Maine, that big 8-pointer, we'd never been in the area. There was tons of snow. It was the second week of muzzleloader, so the second week in December in Maine, and lots of snow. Every place that I know of that I would normally hunt, there was 2 feet of snow, and those bucks are not staying up there for that long. So they had pretty much all come down, and they were on some lower ridges and stuff. And me and a buddy, we were staying in Vermont, and we were hunting Maine, because a guy wanted us to stay at his camp. A friend of ours, he wanted us to stay there, and there was 2 of us driving over every day. So I guess we thought that the drive wasn't a big deal, and it wore us out. We got over there late every day. It was a very laid back experience, but a lot of times that's usually when I get my better deer. So we drove over. The first day we drove over, we pretty much figured out we couldn't hunt where we wanted to hunt. And I'm like, let's just go look at some new country. We're going to head a little farther east and a little south and just see what we can find. And we spent all day driving up these ridges and looking at these areas, and they just were not good. We ended up seeing 2 real nice bucks standing down. We're driving down the highway, and they're down in these hardwoods, down in this big bottom along this river. And we looked at each other and we're like, we could easily go shoot those bucks. Easily. I mean, one was probably 120-inch 8, and the other one's like 130-inch 10. And we just had no desire, they're on state land in wide open hardwoods. We could easily maneuver on them, and we're just like, that's just not how we want to do it. We want to track them, and we want to be in the mountains. And so we left those bucks sitting there. And as soon as we pulled out of the pull off, about 3 trucks pulled in right behind us. So I think they saw us watching them, and I doubt those bucks lived too much longer. But
yeah.
Anyways, the last place we went that day, I think it was maybe 1:00 or something. We pulled up into this spot, and as soon as we pulled in there, there's just buck tracks crossing this road. And it went in for probably a half a mile, and then it started to go up the ridge, and then it split right away, and you couldn't, to the left they had logged, and the road was just too crappy. You couldn't drive too far. And then to the right, it was kind of like the north side, and the snow was deep, and you couldn't go that far. So we split up, and or no, not that day. There was a big one crossed right about as far as we could drive. So we got on him together, and he had crossed the second. We picked him up kind of where the road had made a Y, right? And he went across, and he ended up crossing the other one farther than we could drive. So we knew we had lost a little time, and it was old, but I figured second week of December, he's probably not going far. And we went through some nasty stuff. He took us all down low. He crossed the main road, headed down into a big swamp, and we split up down there, and he ended up taking a different buck track. And then I got into a place where it was all alders in the swamp, and it was all water, and there was just a little bit of ice, and the deer trail was going into it, and that buck had gone out there, and it was way over my boots. So I left him, and I hooked around, and I decided that I didn't have him anymore. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go back and cross the main road and make a loop up the mountain. And when I did, I found this little tiny patch of oaks, and we don't have hardly any oaks anywhere I hunt. And it was rototilled. I mean, there was deer everywhere in there. So there's literally probably 10 minutes of shooting light left. And I'm a mile and a half, 2 miles from the truck. And I'm just poking through there. I got no business going as slow as I'm going,
Mhm.
but I'm like, I'm gonna see these deer, and I ended up seeing like 8 deer, and
Wow.
I'm pretty sure they were all does. I don't think there was a buck among them. And then I hit an old logging road, and I think it was a snowmobile trail actually, and I boogied back to the truck, and it took a long time. And I told him, I was like, well, we know where we're coming tomorrow, and
Mhm.
the next day we get back there, 2 Dunkin' Donuts stops later from Vermont, and we're back over there again, and it's like 9:30, like
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
no, I've always had people tell me, they're like, you don't get in the woods early enough, and I'm like, I'm tracking, like, the deer lives there. He's not going like, he's not gonna
Yeah.
go home, he's not like gonna go
Yeah.
hide for
Yeah.
the day. Like, he'll still be there when I get there. So we roll in, and right away, same spot, nice buck track crossing, like right where it did the day before.
Mhm.
And I was like, I guess I'll take this one. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go up the mountain and see what's up above. And I'm like, all right. And I get on that buck, and I dogged him all day. It was crunchy. He's in the YouTube video, he comes out of his bed like 15 yards from me, 20 yards from me. There was a big bough coming off of this fir tree, or I think it was a hemlock, but it came down, like, and it came right towards me.
Mhm.
And there was like 6 inches of snow on that bough. So he was behind it, and I
Yeah.
was 15 yards. He couldn't see me, and I couldn't see him. And I think he just heard my boots squeaking in the snow.
Yeah.
And he came out of his bed, and I mean, I like snapped the gun up, and I almost had a shot, but it's one of those things, it's a muzzleloader, and I'm like, as soon as I shoot at this buck running, he's gonna stop and just stand there while I
Yeah.
reload.
Yeah.
And it was a decent buck, but not a giant. And I took him out of there, and he crossed the main road, and he went down into all that swampy stuff where I was the day before, and he just wouldn't stop running. I mean, he just ran and ran and ran. Like, I got way too close to him, and he didn't like it.
Mhm.
So I left him, and I went back up, and I wanted to make a loop through where the deer were the day before in those oaks, because it
In
was
that oak.
it was
Yeah.
right on a side hill at the base of the mountain, all hemlocks and oak in there. And I made a bigger swing than I made the day before, and I mean, there was buck rubs in there the size of my steering wheel in my truck
Mm.
on cedar trees.
Nice.
And I like, okay, so there's definitely some good ones in here, you know what I mean? And I didn't end up seeing any more deer, and I made it back to the truck, and we were skeptical because it was supposed to rain all night.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I don't even know what there's going to be for snow left, because we were lower elevation, but there was plenty of snow, but we were low.
Mhm.
And then it was going to freeze up, and it was going to be like freezing rain. So I'm like, we have till like 11 or 12 tomorrow morning. And he's like, all right, I guess we got to get over here earlier. And so we get up early, and the roads were so bad. Like, we made a conscious effort to get there like around daylight, and the
Mhm.
roads were so bad. Like, the roads were iced over. It had rained in the night and turned to freezing rain before it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So we're making like a 3-hour drive, and it's like the roads are solid ice.
Oh man.
And we get over there, and of course, now we got both trucks because this is like the last day we're hunting. So we agreed we just bring both vehicles. And we drive in there, and I was like, I'll take the road to the left like I've been doing, and you take the road to the right, and we'll just see. And I take that road to the left, and I'm like, geez, like that looks like a buck track, like 20 yards from where I keep picking them up. And I get out and look at it, and it's a big, big track headed right down into this same section. And I take one step out of the truck, and when I stepped on the top of the snow, it was already like a solid, like, eighth,
Oh man.
just crust. Then I
Yeah.
step on it, and the pieces break, and they just like slide across the top of the icy snow. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, there's no way. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, he's going down, and it's all green down there, in the swamp. And underneath the softwood, it'll be warmer,
Mhm.
and it won't be iced up as bad. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, well, if he stays down the softwood, I'll be fine. But if he goes up on the mountain, it's just going to be a sheet of ice.
Too crunchy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I parked the truck, and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I got the GoPro on my shoulder, and I don't even realize the weather is so nasty. I mean, it was miserable.
Mhm.
It's so nasty. I don't even realize that I'm not recording. Like I did an entire interview and all this stuff, and like I think my battery pack had like come unplugged or something.
Yeah.
Just dumb. I should have checked, but I take off on him and he crosses the road right where I picked him up. And he goes like 50 yards and he comes to a group of deer and he like checks a bed and then he checks a bed and he checks a bed and I'm like, yep, like it's a buck and he's still
Mhm.
feeling the rut,
Yep.
checking every doe bed. And he goes down and crosses a ravine and goes up on a finger and I got more deer and it's like he's checking every trail and every bed. And pretty soon there's deer tracks just everywhere, which is a little unheard of for the area.
Mhm.
That there's not a real high density, but there's a lot of snow up in the mountains, so a lot of these deer are down. And I'm just I'm just trying to work this deer, and I instead of trying to stay right on the track, I try to cloverleaf. I try to get outside and not waste time figure out where the buck came out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, do I start cloverleafing down or up? And I was like, well, I'll cloverleaf up because like chances are he's probably going to go up.
Mhm.
And so I do a little cloverleaf and there's deer tracks coming out and the crust is so bad that like I have to follow them for a ways to see what they even are because they're
Right.
breaking that crust and it's just falling in. And I'm the whole time I'm doing this, I'm trying to step in the holes that the deer have already made. So I'm breaking less crust by stepping in the holes that they've already broken.
Yeah.
So I go back and I follow up the edge some more and I make another little clover leaf and I just keep doing it. I just keep looping. And then I got a real big track like coming down into the spot where this buck is.
Mhm.
And I'm like, it can't be him unless he came out the other side and has already made a loop and went back in. So I'm like, there's two good ones in here now. And they get on this big hemlock finger. And there, I can see like there's two good tracks going both directions, and there's beds all over. I have some running tracks, but it didn't look like any of the bigger buck tracks were running. It looked like doe tracks were running. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I feel like they came in here, they checked things out, and these does were already bred or whatever, and they left. And then I bumped these does out of here. So I
Mhm.
I loop around some more. I finally find where they're coming out, and they're coming out together. And I'm like, man, it looks like there's a doe and there's two good bucks with her. So I'm following it out, and of course, they leave the softwood where it's semi-quiet, and they go out into all this logged woods, and it's like logged beech and oak, and it's just like I can't see the stuff that's laying on the ground, the sticks and stuff, because there's so much snow. Plus, I've got this icy crust, and I'm just one step at a time. I'm stepping in their tracks, and pretty soon, one of the bucks is like right on the doe the whole time. And they finally got to where it was a little thicker and you
Mhm.
can kind of tell what a buck's got on his head for headgear.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the one like kind of goes to the side and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a good one. Like when they're alone off to the side, you can really get a good look. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good track, and all of this ice is like the saplings are all like an inch around
Yeah.
in this piece of woods and they're just solid ice. And he walked through between those saplings and right where he walked through my camera's not wide enough, but when he went through the trees, this is like 10 inches, but it was like 18 inches between the trees. And you could
Okay.
see where his beams like had hit when
Both
he
the
went
sides.
through and the ice
Yeah.
was broken off on the saplings where he pushed his rack through.
Nice.
And I'm like, all right, one of them's good. Like one of them's at least got a wide rack. And like I go a couple hundred yards and I'm peeking, and they kind of go through this little strip and I go through and I like look out the other side and I see where they like went into the open and then came back through it.
Mhm.
So I turned around and I stayed in the thicker stuff to try and be quiet. And as I'm walking up through, I like look out ahead of me and all I can see is like this beam. I just see this buck's beam sticking out and then I can make out his nose. And of course, I got a muzzle loader and I got a peep sight. and it's pouring rain, well, rain, freezing rain, whatever, everything's soaked. I'm wearing I'm
Yeah.
tracking in rain gear, which I never
Yeah.
do, and I'm
Yeah.
soaked. And I lean a little bit, and in the video, unfortunately, I got the GoPro on my shoulder, and I'm like hunched over, so the camera's like aimed at the ground. So the deer are just out of sight, like you can't see them. But
Yeah.
I pull up on the buck, and he's got a beam that's like coming out towards his nose, and it's like the last day or second. I think it was the last or second to last day of the season. So I'm like, this is definitely a buck that I'm going to shoot. And I'm looking, like I can see like just part of his neck, and I'm trying to lean, and I've got my bead on his neck, and I was like, I'm just gonna shoot him in the neck. And it's going to be a tough shot. He's probably 70 yards, but I'm like, this is probably all I'm going to get. Like, it's
Yeah.
noisy. And I'm just thinking about shooting. And I notice like 30 yards to my left, there's another deer walking. And I like look at him, and I see that, it's that one right
That
there.
one behind you.
It was that big 8, like walking right down the skid trail, like basically to me. And he's like, probably 60 yards or something. And I'm like, oh, like that's a big buck, I pull up, and I'm kind of following him, and he turns, and he's like totally broadside, and I shoot. And at the time I was using Blackhorn 209. So to get some smoke, but not a lot, right? I shoot, and I watch him like disappear. And then I see another deer like go the other way. And then a deer runs across in front of me. And the deer that runs across in front of me is a wide racked 10, like at least 18 or 20 inches.
Wow.
Short tines. He like runs across in front of me, which I think is the one that I was going to shoot in the neck.
Yeah.
But I did shoot the bigger one, I think. But so I watch him bound off. You can see him bound off in the video. And then you can see other deer moving. And by the time it was all said and done, I think there was actually 3 bucks there. I think there was a doe, but I think somehow there was 3 bucks. But, and I mean, that's pretty much the end of it. I reloaded, and I went over there, and he only went 40 yards. He was piled up. A lot of little things had to go right. And it just kind of proved like what I always tell people, that you don't have to be in the woods first thing in the morning. Like if you're a tracker, just, it pays to be laid back. All the guys that I know that are the best trackers are laid back. Like they wait until they find the track that they really want, and then they follow it, and as a younger guy, like I still do it now. It's still really hard when you have fresh snow or day old snow. It's really hard if you're in an area that you don't have a lot of deer, and all of a sudden you find a buck track, and you're like, oh man, he's probably 160 pounds. Like you try to convince yourself that it's not a 2.5-year-old. You try to like, well, maybe it's one of those ones with a big rack, and he just doesn't have a big body,
Sure.
They're certainly out there, but there's indicators for sure. Like if they're feeding, if they're putting their nose down to dig up ferns and stuff, and they're not leaving tine or beam imprints, I personally probably should not be following that deer. Or if they're walking between skinny trees, I shouldn't be following them. You know what I mean? And that's after I got my Adirondack buck this year. I went to New Hampshire for 5 days, and the first 4 days, all I did was drive around and look for a deer that was worth following. And I went where I shot the one that went in the river the year before, and there's people all over the place. I wonder why. Might have been the YouTube video. But like it was tough. It took 4 days. The evening of the 4th day, I found where 2 big ones were crossing a road, and there was nobody hunting. And I went in there the 5th day, got on one of them immediately, passed up a basket rack 8-pointer or 6-pointer, something, 2.5-year-old buck. And I ended up catching the big guy at 40 yards broadside, and I couldn't see his head. And I watched him bound off, and I never saw his antlers, so I never shot. And then I saw the doe run, and I'm like, yep, that was definitely him standing there at 40 yards. And it was a real big deer. I mean, it was a big deer, but that's the way it goes tracking.
It's so cool though, because you learn a lot about deer scouting and doing the archery thing, sitting in the sand, you learn things about them and maybe about specific bucks, but there is something about when you're tracking a deer, you almost get that same, for lack of a better term, prowess reputation that a trapper does. Like you're talking about following a deer and saying that he checked this bed, then he checked this trail and this. So you're like figuring out what that buck is actually looking for. He ain't looking for food, he's looking for love, that kind of thing. And that's cool because you're figuring out what that deer's thinking as you're moving along his track. And then just your ability to like think of things like, well, he just went between these two 18-inch trees and there's ice broken on them and there's tine marks. That's so cool, man. And it's not that, I mean, I'm a sitter, we're in Pennsylvania. We don't get a whole lot of snow, especially in this part. Especially in this part of Pennsylvania. This was the first year ever that it's in my entire life that it snowed for the opener of rifle season. And there was actually more than an inch on the ground, and that's like 26 years of hunting. So I think that's something that's so cool. It's something I'd love to do is do I get to do a little bit of it in northern PA when I go for rifle camp. There's snow pretty often, but
Yep.
Man, that's it. You made a lot of right decisions for that buck that you told the story about, and it's really cool to hear that kind of thing. As far as using snow as a tool when you're tracking, what can you shed light on people who are thinking about doing a track? What's something that you need to know about a buck from your perspective, not necessarily like the cliches. Oh, you got to look for, of course, you got to look for the stride. You got to look for the shape of the hoof. But what's important to you when you're like, this is the buck track that I want to follow?
Yeah. So like, because I hunt so many different areas, I get, northern Vermont when I did hunt up there, and northern New Hampshire, Maine, buck
Uh-huh.
tracks are very similar. Um, the body sizes of the deer are fairly similar.
Uh-huh.
But because I hunt the Adirondacks a lot, there's certain things that you just know that you need to look for. Like you're not going to see these giant tracks in the Adirondacks. Like you certainly can. They're there, but they're far and few between. I think like northern Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, those are considered like the northern whitetail,
Yeah.
right? And then the subspecies that's in the Adirondacks is predominantly, I think, Virginia whitetail.
Mm.
So like Pennsylvania, I'm sure. So they're just not as big most of the time.
Sure.
And obviously there is some overlap in the subspecies and everything, but usually a big Adirondack buck is 160 pounds, 170 pounds dressed,
Okay.
you know. So you're talking a deer that's, 30 or 40 pounds less or even 150 pounds a lot of times.
Uh-huh.
So to me, the track size isn't, it's not everything. Like if you find a giant track, then yeah, that's good. But
Yeah.
I want to see, like, we kind of have this, it's like a myth, right? It started out as a myth with this one certain buck, and it kind of grew into like sort of a joke, but it's true. And like, there's a lot of bucks like this. So there was a buck in New Hampshire. One of my dad's buddies, he first bought his camp in New Hampshire, and he was going to this mountain. And every time he went up there, it was like 4 miles walk in there. And every time he would get there to the same spot, there would be this buck. And the buck had huge, huge feet, right?
Uh-huh.
But that wasn't the impressive part. The impressive part was that his stagger, right? Like the distance between his tracks, his chest was
Okay.
so wide and his stride was so long. And even in an inch of snow, this buck would drag his feet everywhere he went. Like it looked like
Mm.
somebody was just cross country skiing through the woods with the widest cross country skis they could find.
Uh-huh.
And what he immediately said, like what it made him think of was it was like an old guy, right? Like an old man walking to the mailbox in his slippers and his PJs. He's like, it's like this guy, like it's like he's in his pajamas and he's just out for a scroll. So
Yeah.
like we just nicknamed the buck Captain Pajamas. And obviously it's been 15, 20 years, whatever. obviously Captain Pajamas is dead, but
Yeah.
anytime we see one like that, we're like, Captain Pajamas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
it's one of those ones. And everybody knows, everybody in camp is like, no shit, Captain Pajamas, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. He's
so
still out
those are
there.
the ones you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and like a younger buck, even if he's got like, we call it the stagger, right? Like you have stride, which is front to back
Uh-huh.
with the steps, right? And then the stagger is how wide their chest is. Like when they make a track in the snow, how far is it between those tracks, left and right?
Uh-huh.
You know, and a lot of times a younger buck like Northern Maine, 3.5-year-old buck might be 200 pounds dressed, 210 pounds dressed, but he's three
Uh-huh.
and a half. Those tracks are going to be like this. They're going to be just in a straight line. It's
Uh-huh.
going to look like somebody cross country skiing just perfect.
Yeah.
The ones I like is where they swing their feet. So he's like, that the track like goes like this. And then
Yeah.
so the things in the snow are really the marks in the snow are really curved.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's like an old man. He's just swinging his feet out, he's just walking, kind of swinging his
Uh-huh.
feet back and forth. And, you know, that's what a lot of people don't do. They just are like, oh, buck track, pew, go, right? Like follow him. And it's like, no, like every single buck is different. Like, they're just like people. Every buck's different. You need to like figure out this buck's personality. What's he doing? And then every time you go on that mountain, if you don't get him, you're going to be like, that's that one from the other day. He's walking the same. Like he might have one toe that's shorter, just like we have a shorter finger. He might be so old, one's more worn off than the other, or he's got
Uh-huh.
really rounded toes. Might have a really wide foot, but he's got really rounded toes. It might be a really rocky area or whatever. So, like I look for those indicators more than I look for track size.
Uh-huh.
Like I want to see if he just looks lazy, if he's just, if he thinks he's the boss of the woods. Like I want to see what he does when he gets to another buck track.
Uh-huh.
Like if
Uh-huh.
if he's walking and he comes to another buck track and he makes a scrape, a lot of them will do that. He'll cross another buck's track and make a scrape. If
Okay.
he does that, then he thinks he's something, right?
He's the boss hog, yeah.
Yeah. So if he's walking like Captain Pajamas and he's making scrapes on other bucks, tracks, and he's walking by these big rubs, there's all these like little indicators that like this is the guy. He's the man.
Uh-huh.
And that's usually the toughest one to get in an area. And just being totally honest, like most of the time, I don't have the patience for that. You know what I mean? Like a decent 8-pointer is going to get it because I
Yeah.
like deer meat.
Yeah.
Like I try
feel that.
hard not to shoot. I try hard not to shoot like a year and a half old, 2.5-year-old bucks, but I also try hard to have a full freezer.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm not necessarily the best in the fact that like I don't shoot does.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's no doe rifle tags anywhere that I hunt, and I'm not out there bow hunting, so I'm not really doing my part for the antlerless harvest. But I know there's a lot of guys that shoot as many as they can shoot. So hopefully they're getting them for me. But
Well, going where, I mean, if there's no tags where you're going, that's one thing. It's not like you're kind of like not really doing a disservice to the area if there's no tags. But like here in PA, I ended up getting like I did terrible this year. I shot like 4 deer and I had like 8 doe tags. You know what I mean? Plans to
oof,
shoot them all. Plans to shoot them all. I only filled a couple of them though. But they give out so many here. So yeah, I killed those, but it's not. Pennsylvania has a relatively high deer density in most places that you go. And then if it doesn't, you can find a pocket that does have a density. So um so when you get into that, like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like you have the opportunity to shoot both in the same day or in a couple days. Whereas like, I mean, you might be following a track all day until you find that deer,
yeah,
as far as you go. So um you talked about kind of clover leafing, and I don't know. I hate to say this as a as is that. Is that something that you do often to kind of take a shortcut around a track to try to head him off? Is that something that is
I do
routinely?
it. Yeah, I do it like if you get into a spot and it's really tracked up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if it's because what's going to happen is if you get into an area and it's just all tracked up,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to waste a bunch of time trying to sort everything out.
Yeah.
The only time that I won't do it right away is if I'm already like if it's really noisy or like if I feel like I have a really hard day ahead of me or, you know, the chances are not good that I'm going to get the deer, I might
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like if it's a brand new spot, I might just want to check it out real quick
Mm-hmm.
and like see what they're doing in there. Um, but if it's like really good conditions or I'm really feeling it or it's a place I've already been, then I don't need to like go into this spot and see what was going on and like see who was at the party. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm gonna gain time, right? Because that
Mm-hmm.
buck went in there, and when he went in there into that barnyard, he lost time.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
screwed around in there for a while, and he lost time. So now,
Yeah.
if I just circle it and find his track coming out, as long as I'm confident enough in myself and my abilities to know which track is his coming out, you're gonna gain a lot of time. You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Sure.
gain at least a half hour or an hour probably.
So are you kind of just going off of what your knowledge when you're making a decision on which way to go, just based off of your knowledge of deer or based off of what you found from that deer following his track on guessing on which way he went? Because you had mentioned, well, did he go up or did he go down? Well, obviously deer are things that they love to follow funnels or like the path of least resistance, but sometimes they don't. So what do you think brings you success in a decision like that?
Yeah, so like if he's been generally heading in one direction,
Uh-huh.
um, or generally going up or down, right? Then I'm gonna do whatever he's been basically doing the entire time. The
Uh-huh.
only downfall to that is a lot of times they get into those spots and they come out with a doe,
Uh-huh.
and then they're going where the doe wanted to go, at least for a
Okay.
little bit.
So then their
Um,
personality might change a little bit on the track.
yeah, and I'm not like I know how this is gonna sound, so I'm hesitant to say it, but like I can go pretty fast, right? So
Mhm,
like if I'm circling an area and I don't think that they're right there, if I think they're already gone and I'm just trying to catch up to them, I can motor pretty good. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
I'm pretty
mhm,
fast in the woods. I can make that loop pretty quick. And I'm gonna take the chance at maybe bumping something to gain that time.
mhm,
Because one of the most important things with tracking is to get caught up to the deer. Like if you're not anywhere near him, I don't care how quiet you are.
mhm.
If he's 2 hours ahead of you or 2 miles ahead of you, it doesn't really matter if you don't break a stick
Right.
because he wasn't going to hear it anyways. So
Yep.
you need to get caught up to the deer. Then once you get caught up to the deer, then you can become the ninja that you think you are, But
Yeah.
until
Sure.
then, you just need to get caught up to him.
I think that's great advice, and I don't think that's cocky at all. I mean, uh, this is me trying to learn something from you about tracking, and uh, I do have also the ability to move quickly in the woods, but that's some good advice because I'll tell you something that I would do. I'd find a deer track and be like, he's right there, and I would be like probably too cautious than I should be, and that comes from a place of inexperience. So when you're teaching somebody, like, I have a lot of experience on deer, I don't have a lot of experience tracking deer, so that's really good advice. um
You need to
be-
become so you know how a lot of guys, a lot of stand hunters,
uh-huh.
you know, those of us that aren't stand hunters, we make fun of stand hunters because we're like, you guys are weathermen, right? With your wind
Yeah.
directions and your high and low pressure and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the exact same way. A deer tracker is also a weatherman. Like, when was you like all these things that you need to think of when you need
Mm-hmm.
to age your track. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when did it last snow? How cold is it right now? Are tracks melting right now?
Or the icing, yeah.
Or is it freezing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, when if this track is melted out, but it's 30 degrees right now, like when was it melting? Like
Mm-hmm.
if the corners are all rounded in the track and it has already begun to melt and
Mm-hmm.
it's 25 degrees out, was it warm enough to melt yesterday? If so, then that track's from yesterday morning.
Too
You know what I
old.
mean?
Yeah.
Like there's all of these factors. Like to be a good deer hunter, you have to be a weatherman in your own way.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's kind of it's just a different way. It doesn't the wind direction doesn't matter as a tracker. It doesn't matter if it's a high or low pressure. It doesn't matter what the moon phase is. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like none of
Yeah.
it matters. It doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. The only thing that matters is you're in the woods and you find a deer track.
Yeah. Well, what about does the wind not matter ever during a track, or is there ever a time where you're like, if I don't swing, or I think I'm getting close to this deer, if I don't swing around that way, he's going to get me. I'm going to have to start following him again.
I mean, I have, I know guys that are like, okay, he's bedded on top of this knob
Uh-huh.
and the wind's right at my back. So I'm going to circle the knob and I'm going to come up the backside. And that's totally fine. That's cool. More power to you. Basically, every time that I've tried it, the buck went up the knob and down the other side. So I
Uh-huh.
made a loop around and did all this sneaking only to find out that he never even laid down. He just kept trucking.
Yeah.
So it could be really beneficial. It could also be a really good way to just lose time on the deer.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I don't do it. I try to just assume, just like we complain that the wind is constantly swirling and changing, I just assume that it's going to work to my advantage and
Uh-huh.
maybe it's right at my back, but where the deer is, it's blowing at me,
Yeah.
Um,
That makes
I,
sense. In the big woods, you're right. Like wind, I think as somebody who hunts out of a stand, I think wind matters if you can help what you can help, right?
yeah,
If I know my wind is, I want to hunt on northwest wind. My wind is ideally going to blow that way most of the day. But me as somebody who's hunted in a tree knows if I throw milkweed out enough, it probably goes all directions while I'm there. Just the majority of the time it goes the right direction.
yeah,
But if you're in the big woods, deer come from they don't really. So you talked about not really having a whole lot of oaks where you're at, and I have almost nothing but oaks, which is kind of hard because you can't figure out where they're eating. I was shed hunting this morning with my buddy, and we're walking through the woods, and he's like, "Oh, I was watching this thing with Grant Woods the other day, and he said, find the food, find the cover." And the deer, he's like, "What do I? There's cover there, there's cover there, there's food everywhere." Like, and that's kind of how it is in the big woods, you know.
yeah,
It is kind of nice when you're tracking to run across something like you did, like that oak tree that was just shredded up, because you can kind of sneak back in there, and even if you mess something up, you give them a little time to cool off. I bet you that's something they come back to pretty often. Are you finding that?
yeah. I mean, there's definitely certain places that there's always deer, especially like day to day.
Uh huh.
Uh, but it seems like in the big woods, the only places that I know of in the Adirondacks for oak, it's like, last year there was a place that had so much sign. I don't put cameras out for deer.
Uh
Like
huh.
I just don't do it. I put them out for moose. I don't even put them out for deer. And last year I was like, I got to put a camera here. Like this spot's stupid. And I had 17 different bucks on the camera.
Wow.
I never once hunted it. I never went there one time to like, there was bare ground bucks there 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I never once went and sat there. Like I don't want to. I don't want to go
Uh huh.
sit. It's not fun for me. So I was
Uh huh.
hiking around in a totally different spot.
Uh huh.
And this year I was like, well, I got to put a camera there because I got to know what's there. I think I had 3 bucks on it the whole season. So it was there even longer and there was virtually nothing. And there was
Yeah.
enough acorns.
Uh huh.
But it wasn't an overload like it was the year before. The year before, it was
Gotcha.
like dangerous because it's steep in there. It was like dangerous to walk because there was so many acorns.
Yeah.
And this year, it was certainly seemed to me like there was enough acorns for deer to eat. But I
Yeah.
guess they had a better food source somewhere. But
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
talking miles from any road too. So who knows what they were doing?
Yeah. So what is something, I'm sure there's times where you get burnout from following tracks for days and days. what's something you kind of use to relieve that little bit of burnout? I know you talked to me about at the show, and you were saying like, oh, I asked about the grouse hunting. You're like, oh, we don't really grouse hunt. We just kind of like walk the roads when when their bird goes up. Then it's is that something you do to kind of relieve a little bit of the tension? Just some fun hunting or fishing or whatever it happens to be.
No, we only get so many tracking days.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's tracking snow
Just got to
and
grind
I
it
can
out.
go, I plus the other thing too, like for me is, I have my son every other week,
Uh-huh.
right? So when I have him, he's in school and I can't just be in Maine or New Hampshire or the Adirondacks, you know what I mean? I certainly hunt those weekends and sometimes we play hooky, don't tell anybody. But like a day here and there, and with a 8 or 9 year old walking behind you, your odds are certainly less. We've almost gotten a couple bucks tracking, him and I,
Cool.
which is really good for his age.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I would say it's almost lit the fire in me and like increased my drive now because I have to be, I have to be dad. I have to be solo dad for a week. So it's like I can't
Uh-huh.
really get out there no matter how good the snow is. Like it's him and I that week. He's in school and it almost like gets it built up in me where it's like, he goes back with his mom and it's like I got 7 days just to go as hard as I can go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so it's it's a positive and a negative at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I would love to be with my kid every week. You know what I mean? But then like when I don't have him, I can really go, even though it's like sometimes the best week for deer hunting is the week that I have him, and that's just the sacrifice that you have to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
hear that, man.
he loves
Uh
it though. We get out. When I have him, we get out, and I try not to take him up the steep stuff because I'm trying not to
burn them
burn
out.
him out.
Yeah.
I want it to be fun for him. So
I can't wait to see the first deer you kill with him or the first deer he shoots, man. It's gonna be cool.
he was with me when
Uh
I shot a bear, and he got a bear. He shot a bear when he was 7.
yeah. Yeah.
Eh,
So you work well, first of all, we're gonna have to do another show where we talk about getting kids into hunting because that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. 7 years old, man. But you work with Woodman Arms. What are you carrying in the woods with you when you're on a track like that?
So when I'm tracking during the regular rifle season, the firearm season, whatever you want to call it, I use a Remington 760 carbine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 30-06 I have a Skinner peep sight on there. Um, I would love to tell you that I'm like different than the average deer tracker up here, but it just seems like most guys that are serious are using, an old Remington pump, you know,
Sure.
uh, 7600, 760, whatever. They just work. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're made the best, they're not necessarily the most well-made rifle, but
Mm-hmm.
they just seem to work. They just, for what they are, they're very accurate and
Mm-hmm.
they just seem to go bang when you need them to go bang.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can use the thing as a canoe paddle if I have to. Um, I've been looking into some, I don't have the best shoulders. Like, I don't know if it was the army that did it or like I'm not very big and packing out all these moose is probably not awesome for me either. But
Mm-hmm.
like, I noticed that like my shoulders bother me just the little tiny pack that I carry with the GoPro.
Mm-hmm.
There's like nothing in it. It's like, I bring nothing. You don't know
Yeah.
a person that brings less in the woods than I bring in the woods. Like
Yeah.
the idea of carrying stuff with me drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I basically have a hunting license and like one candy bar, and then my knife, and then like my pack with my GoPro. Like I
Yeah.
I I hate to carry things that are unnecessary. So just the weight of that's been bothering me. So I've been looking into like the Howa super light. It's like a 4.5 pound bolt action.
Oh wow.
I could get that in a 308, and that it would be a lot lighter.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's super hard to put that pump down. Like I can rattle off some rounds with it. I'm real accurate with it. So I don't know. I'm gonna carry it as long as I can. I've got one that's basically brand new, but it's in a 308, which is
Uh-huh.
super rare.
Yeah.
And I bought that like I don't know 4 or 5 years ago for my son. It's
Yeah.
just sitting there. It's just waiting for him when he's big enough. So
Nice.
hopefully he still likes to go hunting and stuff when he's big enough. But
Yeah. So I know the other thing that's pretty popular up in those northern woods is to make sure that you weigh your deer when you get it out. Are you packing them or are you dragging them?
oh, I'm dragging him.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm dragging him. I shot one, not this past year, but the year before in the Adirondacks. He was 5 miles from the truck, and we dragged him. I shot a buck. Me and my old man shot bucks the same day. He was like 4 miles from the truck, and I was like 5 miles, and I dragged mine down off the mountain. The worst part was there was uphill involved. So like I dragged
Uh-huh.
mine off the mountain until I got him to the brook, and then
Uh-huh.
I left him. I had like the it makes me really sad because it's still there, but I had one of those like grid fleece Sitka like midweight layers, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite piece of hunting gear I've ever had. I think it was like the Traverse or something. Like I loved
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
I took it off. It was all sweaty, and I tied it on the buck's antlers, and I left him there. And then I had to hike up from the brook up the next ridge
Uh-huh.
to get to where Dad was,
Uh-huh.
and I hit his blood trail, and which was awesome because he shot the buck right where I told him there was a bunch of deer the day before.
Yeah.
So it was like I told him, I was like, you got to go right here. Like this is where it's happening. And he got there and he got on a track and bang, he shoots a nice 8 pointer. So I followed the blood trail about a mile, and then it was like 3 more miles out of there, and we got it out that night, but it was late. And we three of us went back the next day with a sled, and we got mine out. Like I said, my Sitka shirt's still on a limb right there, but
Uh,
um, it's just what we do, like.
yeah.
We don't. The weight's not even a big deal in the Adirondacks, really. Like, I know that that's not a heavy deer, but they look
Yeah.
awful cool hanging off the front of camp. Getting a picture of them and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're just weird, and that's just what we do.
Yeah. I mean, well, not really. I mean, that's really the way most people like to do a whitetail is to drag them out. I have a quarter-mile rule now, though. I pack anything out that's a quarter mile because I don't know. There's something kind of cool about pictures of your deer in your pack too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But archery season is a little different too. Like if I shoot a buck, I shot uh, uh, a nice buck in a clear cut maybe 6 years ago, and it was the first year we packed out. But it was like it was 36 degrees in the morning, but by the time I shot it and we found it and got to it, whatever, it's already 55. So
Mm.
I was 3 miles back. That's something, do I really want to drag a deer in 55 degrees uphill back to try? Like, maybe it would be fine, but maybe it wouldn't. So that's something where I'm like, the archery thing's fine. But I know that's a big thing up there is to have them on the buck pole and get the weights and stuff. It's cool here, man. I love
yeah.
it.
It's that's kind of the thing. Like the trackers thing is like shoot one that's dressed out 200 pounds or more.
Hmm.
And it's tough. I mean, it's
Have you done it?
oh yeah. I think five. I think I've got five over.
Wow.
But like those two that you saw on Instagram that I just hung up were last year. They were both in December. One was New
Uh-huh.
Hampshire, one was Maine. And
Uh-huh.
they're both big deer. The one with the smaller rack that was in the river that was all scarred up, he was like 183, 183 and a half, something like that. But he looked 210. We put him in the sled and he looked huge. If you saw the pictures if you saw the video on YouTube, the deer looks enormous. Like
Uh-huh.
they're just run down that late, and actually that big one from Maine, he was like a week later. The one that I just told you the story about, he was like
Uh-huh.
166. But
Wow.
if you saw the mount, you would be like, that deer was enormous. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, like I said, that was
It's like a
little,
bass at the end of the summer versus in May. You catch
yeah,
them in
yeah,
big old
yeah.
gut.
I mean, let's see what you look like if you rut hard for a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, basically like me at the end of deer season. You know what I mean? I'm skin and bones by the time deer season's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I start moose scouting, like the end of August, and then I'm in the woods until New Year's or what.
Yeah.
Except then I go right into shed hunting anyway. So like,
Yeah.
no
It's
rest
always
for the
some kind of
wicked.
season. Yeah, it's always, dude, my wife's always like, "So we're gonna have a break for a little while?" I'm like, "Mm,
I mean,
it
I might fatten up a little bit, like sitting in the shanty watching tip ups. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah." Well, the crappie fishing's really good in April. I don't know. I
yeah,
feel like
yeah,
but dude, this has been a really cool conversation. I have not gotten to talk to a lot of trackers, and I think you're probably going to be my go-to guy when it comes to talking about tracking because this was a fun conversation. Um, let me hear where let the people know where they can find you at, man, where they can see your YouTube and your
yeah. So
socials.
I have my own YouTube channel, which doesn't have much on it anymore. It's just my name, Nick Campagna. But me and some buddies, we have making tracks on YouTube.
Making
It's
tracks.
Yep, it's mostly me. Like it's hard to convince these other guys to carry a GoPro, but they do get some cool stuff on their phone. We got moose on there, deer,
Oh, cool.
obviously, bear hunt. I think we have another. I think I might have another bear hunt to do. Turkeys. The turkey ones are hard. I don't know. My boy shot a couple birds last year and we had wicked footage and those
Yeah.
videos have like a couple hundred views and I'm like, dude, this was insane. Like what nobody wants to
Yeah.
watch.
I don't know, man. Turkey hunting, everybody likes to do it, everybody likes to talk about it. Nobody likes to learn anything about it, which I don't know. It's like even for the podcast, like people don't really like to listen to them. I'm all about it. I like to listen to podcasts, but
Yeah,
um
I listened to them.
yeah, and I mean you're right about something like turkey hunting is easy when you can find birds that want to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
because you find a gobbler that's like 2.5 years old and you get him fired up, he's coming, you
Oh
know.
yeah, he's done.
But that's the important part is like you got to find him and then it's easy.
Yeah, guys struggle with that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing that I tell guys that are trying to track.
Mm-hmm.
It goes across the board. I don't care if you're shed hunting. I don't care if you're turkey hunting, deer tracking. I don't care if you're sitting in a tree stand or if you're pike fishing. Do not get married to a spot ever. Don't do
Oh,
it.
I love
Like
that. I
I
love
did it
that.
at the beginning of this year,
Mm-hmm.
the very beginning of this year in the Adirondacks. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
My old man had one trail camera that he put out in the Adirondacks, one, and he had like 165-inch buck on it in the Adirondacks, where
Mm-hmm.
where a 120 is a big deer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he shot his buck immediately in that spot, and it was
Mm-hmm.
a beauty. And then I spent like 3 weeks just going there and trying to, and I think I was onto him a couple times, but like it's 4 miles to get to the spot where he lives, and then he can be from there to another 3 miles back in there. So like trying to find him was, almost impossible. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you do, you can't get married to a spot. You know what I mean? Like if
Mm-hmm.
you go somewhere turkey hunting, like a lot of guys will be like, okay, I turkey hunt on the weekend and there's public land 2 miles from my house and I go there and I don't hear anything. Well, you should go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'll never understand it. But I think some people just, for lack of a better term, like they lack some adventure. It's like
Sure.
things that are comfortable is what they want to do. It's like, no, this is what I know. This is what I want to do, and I'm just not that way. We drove
Mm-hmm.
we drove to Arizona last spring to look for elk sheds just
That's
because,
fun.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I don't even
Yeah.
apply for elk tags in Arizona. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
driving there to find elk antlers.
Yeah. I love that. That's definitely something I'd love to do, man. Yeah, I like the adventure side of it, and I'm becoming more like that. I love bow hunting, and you can't. It'd be hard to track a deer with a bow in archery season in PA.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't. So you do have to like get to know the woods and find a good ambush spot. But the more and more I have archery hunted, the less and less. It's not that I don't care about a big buck. Like everybody wants to kill a big buck. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do my best to put myself in the position where I can get one, and I can always find them. that's not really a problem, especially if, like, we run trail cameras, whatever. But I am also like, I need deer in my freezer. So usually 110-inch bucks make me happy. But there is something way more fun to me about like getting into an area and finding that brand new scrape with the dirt that's all over top of the leaves, and then kind of like, okay, like here's the edge of this sign starting. I'm going to dig in a little bit further and be like, okay, this is the place where I need to set up. And you get in that tree and you got 2 hours of light left, and then it's like, oh, and here comes a deer. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
There's something so rewarding to that, where you kind of stop caring if it's a 150-inch 10-pointer that you've been following all summer long. You know what I mean?
Yep.
110-inch 8-pointer comes walking down there, and all of a sudden it means more to you because you did the adventure to find that like brand new and reading sign and stuff. Now you're like, all right, let's go.
Oh,
There is
yeah.
something so cool to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Ohio, I can go to Ohio whenever I want and hunt on my buddy's land or on his lease,
Mm-hmm.
and I have, and I hunted public and shot a nice buck on public in Ohio. Shot bucks with him on his property or lease, whatever, and it's fun. Like, don't get me wrong, it's fun. And like out there, you hear the vocalizations and stuff that like we don't get to see here, especially tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Bucks chasing does out of bedding areas like right by me and
Mm-hmm.
just grunting like crazy and super awesome. But like there's something about shooting ones like 5 miles back in the Adirondacks where there's nobody,
Yeah.
there's nobody there unless it's somebody from my own clan. Like there's nobody there,
Mm-hmm.
and then dragging that thing out 5 miles, and it means more, and like
Yeah.
that, I made that post when I picked those bucks up yesterday. Like once the meat's gone, like the only thing you have left is memories. And like honestly, I would take the memories, with friends over the deer heads. You know what I mean? Like if you said like
Absolutely.
you can't get a deer mounted, but you can have all these memories with your buddies and stuff, or you can shoot all these big bucks and get them mounted, but like you were by yourself every time and you don't have anybody to share it with.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna shoot scrubs and share it with my buddies. And you know what I mean? Like it's it doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't share it, because like I'm gonna die. You know what I mean? And like
Yep.
my son's gonna be like, oh yeah, dad shot all these big bucks, but like now I'm stuck with all these deer heads, Like
Yep.
at some point and it happened to me a few years ago, I think, where I was just like, man, it means a lot more like that one that died in the river. He's nothing special. He's wide, he's like 19 inches wide or something,
Yeah.
but short tines, and he was just an ugly, ugly northern New Hampshire buck. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
just like anybody could look at that mount and be like, that buck lived up north.
Yep.
He's just
Yep.
really gray, has a really like heavy, thick red patch on his head. Like
Yeah.
he just has the look. And I would never get that deer mounted.
Yeah.
But like the story of him going in the river and
Yeah.
swimming for an hour. Like
Yeah.
after I shot him, he was in the river for an hour swimming, trying to get, and I hit him so far back that like it wasn't going to kill him right away. It was in the
Right.
intestines,
Right.
and I couldn't shoot him again because he was swimming.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was 10 feet from the deer. I
Mm-hmm.
heard him crash into the river, and I ran over there, and he was trying to come back up the bank where I was, and I was like, I can't shoot it.
Yeah.
I now I question it now because I'm like, man, I could have put him out of his misery,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have been legal because like if they're swimming, you can't do it, and
Right.
it's
You
like,
can't shoot a
so
deer that's taking refuge in water. Right.
yeah, so like I watched this buck try to get up the bank, and then he's like, nah, there's a guy there, and he turned around and just swam across. And
Yeah.
so the story was just ridiculous, and then my buddy helps me, get the buck out of the river. We got like I don't know if you saw the video, but we got like an ice chisel that you would use for ice fishing to check the ice, and we tied a rope,
Yep.
and we used a jet sled as a boat and slid the jet sled onto the ice, and like, and we got him. And we thought we were going to lose him. We thought he was going to go under the ice.
Yeah.
So it was just ridiculous. So I was like, I got to get this deer mounted. And I didn't have him fix the hide I had
Uh-huh.
him paint it just like it was, so it's like all red and raw looking, and
Yeah, cool.
it's more about the story than the deer heads, or you know,
Yeah, that's
it's the
cool,
the,
man.
the memories are the most important thing.
I love that. I love that so much, dude. All right. Once again, where can people find you?
Oh yeah, we were doing that.
Yeah, I
So it's
forgot
just
because
my
I was so into the stories,
yeah, we're like,
the best part.
deer hunting. So making tracks, YouTube, there's a making tracks Facebook and Instagram, and I
Yeah,
don't post on there near as much as I should. Um, and then it's just my name on Instagram and Facebook too, just Net Campagna. So
cool. And check out Woodman. It's Woodman Arms, right? Not
yep,
Woodsman
Woodman
Arms. Yeah,
Arms.
Woodman
Yeah,
Arms.
I'm the
Check them out.
director of sales and marketing. You know, I'll give you a little micro pitch. We basically make the most accurate hunting muzzleloader.
Uh-huh.
Unless you're going to go out west, and well, I mean, we make that too. Honestly, we make a bolt action that's a 1,000-yard muzzleloader. So,
Nice. Very cool.
like you said, we'll have to do another one and talk about the kids and all that. And
I'd love that, man. Let's do it.
I've got we're supposed to be doing a women's like beginner turkey camp this spring here. So that'll be fun. The girls are always doing like these deer hunts,
Yeah.
and the waterfowl thing is popular, and I
Yeah.
was really pushing on them to do a turkey one, because like you're only hunting half a day, it's
Yeah.
interactive, and
Yep.
the zone that I turkey hunt in Vermont, I mean, there's birds everywhere. So
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter is 11 and she has we'll see how it goes when we get there. But she's agreed to go turkey hunting for the first time with me this year. So I'm pretty excited. We have a little weekend youth season up here and
yep.
um I've got some turkeys across the street for the last couple months. I'm hoping a couple of them hang out. We'll see how it goes. But uh I'm pretty excited, man. She likes to fish. She goes with me here and there. She came out pheasant hunting this year just to watch the dog and that kind of thing. But man, I'm excited to put a shotgun in her hand and see if she wants to really do it or not. We'll see. But
Oh
I'm pretty
yeah, those
excited.
little 410s are a blast too. You get a little
Yeah.
410, like, doesn't hardly kick.
Yeah, yeah. I have a youth 20 gauge, and I've got a couple people are like, well, we got a 410. We'll see how it goes. So I'm probably banking towards that, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I kind of made that mistake. I let Blake rip the old SA-20 there, and it was a little more than he had bargained for,
Yeah,
and so I ended up getting I got him a single shot 410.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
put TSS in that thing, like, he shot two birds last year, and I mean, he wrecked those things. Like,
Okay.
that 410 ruins them. You put TSS in there, and they don't stand a
No,
chance. Like, I'm gonna
no
use it. You know
problem.
what I mean? The gun weighs
Yeah,
like 3 pounds. So
yeah, yeah. Cool. I love it, dude. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
yeah,
Talk to you soon.
sounds good.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks everyone for tuning into that episode. That was super awesome. I really enjoyed having Nick, and we're probably going to have him on for some whitetail brief episodes to give you guys a snapshot of what's happening up in that Northwoods. If you would check out Nick in the links in the show notes, there'll be links to Woodman Arms and to Nick's Instagram there. So check it out. If you would follow us at InCamp Podcast on Instagram. If you really would, I'd love it if you followed the show, subscribe to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and we're on iHeartRadio too, I believe. Thank you so much. This is InCamp Podcast.